Hello, beautiful community. Just a tiny update today. I think the stuff we said on the main channel really holds. That, we're looking at a peacock's tail of unpredictable consequences developing that are part of this pattern of the war coming onto Russian soil. That's something that's been on the cards for a long time, and even though what we've seen is so extraordinary in the last few days, I would be surprised if we didn't see more extraordinary things in the months to come. The second pattern that's challenging for Putin is that he is stuck with this Z opposition, which he's going to have to accommodate to some extent. And that might mean Putin militarizing society, trying to push through more totalitarian turns, not necessarily against his own best judgment, but against his sense of timing. So that's to say that some of these radicalizations that Putin might himself have in mind for the future, he may need to do earlier. But the single most important thing to say about the impact of that event is that it activated this what if not Putin question to some extent, right? Putin's aura of perceived legitimacy, his aura of being there in some kind of ordained inevitable way, has been irreversibly punctured. And when we talk about that alternative being available, that question, what if not Putin? Can we, Russians might say, can we explore this? Can we think about it practically? So what that event has done, it's to some extent unblocked normative thought about politics in Russia, right? Because our normative thought in the West about politics is in crisis, in a crisis of polarization and toxicity, but that's not the Russian situation. The Russian situation is that normative thought about politics is obstructed altogether. So this event unobstructs it and makes it more possible to ask, what if not Putin? And that means that we are likely to see more politicking inside the elites, and the elites starting to talk between themselves politically, right? For that to open a bit more. And as that happens, it's going to be more possible for the population to politicize. But we're not talking about some kind of a major all-changing transformation. We're talking about moving from this to this. And the scale of the problem of depolitization has gone from this to this, right? So don't think I'm saying that we've gone through from this to that. So it's important to keep a perspective here. But just in terms of what happened in the last 24 hours, that impacts what I've just shared. Of course, we have to look at Putin's appearances and attempts to put this thing back in the bottle and to normalize it as though nothing really happened. Now, Prigozhin created a revolutionary situation, in my view. Prigozhin didn't want to overthrow Putin. That wasn't a goal of his. It wasn't a primary goal of his. It wasn't a conscious goal of his. It's possible he didn't even really go there at all in his mind. But and that Putin recognizes that. Putin knows that Prigozhin wasn't marching to hang Putin. But Putin also recognizes that Prigozhin created a revolutionary situation, and that is why the Russian population would have recognized just how shaken and uncomfortable Putin was. He was furious in a way that was a little hidden, but he was shaken in a way that was very transparent, and hence his conversations have been rather passive and unauthoritative, as though he's the boy who fell off the little thing he was walking and is gingerly trying to climb back on. Now, why Putin may have some limited success at pushing the thing back into the bottle is because what we're dealing with is this extraordinary level of depoliticization, right? And you know, right, that when we say depoliticization, we don't mean not being interested in politics. We rather mean a special kind of denial and evasion, right, to do with political events. So it will be hard for a lot of Russians to accept what they've seen. And begin to think about it politically. The instinct is that these guys are doing that to those guys. I mean, okay, let's just go like that. I mean, so, as ever, and this is a big mistake Western commentators consistently make, in never really dealing with ignorance in Russia, you're dealing with resistance. And we should learn that about our own societies too, right? When one's political opponents, because one's always right about everything in politics, right? But when one's political opponents seem to be resisting what one thinks is an obvious truth, which is harmful to resist, the point is that they are indeed resisting. They're not ignorant of it, right? And it would take a reconfiguration of their sense of their own political agency that is perhaps unimaginable for them to turn about and accept this thing that you say is true. So you're not asking them for an epistemic change. You're asking them for a kind of inner transformation as a political agent. So Putin's normalization will tie in with that resistance. And that will allow him to normalize it somewhat, but only somewhat, because the extravagance of the event, the farce of the event was so extreme you can't put it back in the bottle. We'll be talking about a lot more stuff like this in detail over the next day or two. Lots of love. Bye bye for now.